Well, welcome back to another episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. I'm Frank.
And I'm Michael.
And today's episode is episode number 80, and we're doing our start, stop, keep reflection. Let's jump into it.
All right, well, we're going to start with some cruise news for the day, starting with MSC. We didn't talk about this a couple weeks ago, Frank, because, the past couple weeks we've had Jason and Garrett come on, talk about their actual sailing on the MSC Seashore. One new thing, we talked about their drink package, right? And I think they said they had the Easy or Easy Plus drink package. MSC announced they're actually getting rid of both of those packages and are now adding a drink limit, right? So,
Yep.
Kind of like Carnival has the 15 drink limit per day, MSC's adding that, and now this drink package is going to be called the Premier Extra package. So I know one thing they kind of announced is they're upping like the value of drinks you can get on the ship. I think Easy and Easy Plus was like $10 and $12 or something like that. This, I think I saw when I was on MSC's website the other day, you can get drinks up to $16 now, which I think was pretty much kind of like if you went to like the specialty cocktail bar on the seashore, like that was the
Pretty much everything at that
price
point, right?
of the drinks at that bar, and those are definitely the most expensive. So yeah, I mean, like we said, they're getting that drink limit now, where it gets a little not tricky per se, but if you're staying in the yacht club, the rules are a little bit different. When you get drinks inside the yacht club itself, you get unlimited. If you go out to the ship, they're still capping you at 15 out and about. So a little odd. I don't understand the difference of why you're keeping, unless they just truly don't scan and stuff in the yacht club, since it's included anyways and they're just giving it to you. Maybe that's it.
So here's from my analysis from what you've said is they're not doing a good job of enforcing the scanning and really logging the drinks correctly. So there's probably a lot of waste, and maybe they think that by limiting, I feel like you could just actually ring in all the drinks, and that would basically solve the same. I don't really understand why the drink limit, but I like the fact that they're going up to $16. I think it's easier. Like you said, you and Jason both, it seems like you had a compromise on what, liquors you wanted on board. So this will be a really, really nice thing just to have, the actual, all of your drinks pretty much part of that package. All right, so our second news item for today, Norwegian Bliss and Breakaway are actually going through a dry dock, and they've announced that they're going to be expanding some of their current offerings on board, which will include a new cinema and a dining venue, as well as upgrading or adding on this outdoor rec area. So there's a silver screen bistro is what they're calling it. And they're going to be basically, it's like an immersive cinema and dining venue that they're going to have on board, which seems really, really nice, honestly, just based on the drawings and what's been posted by Norwegian. And then they're adding a Horizon Park, which will be a new outdoor rec area.
Okay.
And then they're also going to expand some of their current venues, but it's interesting. They're adding a nice outdoor area. Kind of reminds me of what Celebrity has, with their kind of garden area outside. And I think this is really cool. I think that they're noticing that people want to spend more time outside with ocean views. And so this will kind of check all those boxes for Norwegian. So we'll kind of stay tuned and kind of see what's to come with this new dry dock update.
All right. Well, Frank, we're recording this before the year ends.
It's actually probably everyone already went through Christmas, so
yeah, and I mean,
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. I mean, I think this episode is going to release on New Year's itself, so nice. Happy New Year's too.
Yep.
But last year we sat down and we kind of did what we called this start, stop, keep kind of end of year reflection thing. But kind of before we get into that, this is our first actual full year as a podcast when you think about it.
Yep.
We started spring or summer of 2023. So, I mean, we released a lot of new episodes this year. We're going to go over our top 5 in a second. But, Spotify kind of does their Spotify Wrapped each year for the music you listen to. And they actually give us some stats as a podcast. So some cool ones. This year we gained by 350% in listeners.
Wow.
So shout out to all y'all that tune in each week and that share this podcast. Obviously, y'all sharing it and telling your friends really helps us out and continues just to get the word of the podcast out. Because then the next kind of stat they gave us is our streams itself increased by 654% this year.
That's crazy.
Now, like we said, more episodes this year, so that obviously helps. But obviously, I mean, the listeners, I think, is the big one, and that number kind of helping the streams. Last year, Frank, we were in 41 countries. How about this year?
79 countries. That's we almost doubled. Yeah. pretty crazy. And then one thing that we saw was really interesting was we're in the top 5% of video podcasts, which is like a new feature for Spotify. And we were kind of like an early adopter to that new tool. So if you've enjoyed watching on Spotify, it has video, which is really, really cool. And then we're also posting to YouTube. And then in terms of our top 5 episodes, I feel like trying to do the math on this. Celebrity with Megan, I think, was a newer one last year. That's still our number 1 episode. So it's a shout out to Megan. Great job there. Virgin Voyage review with Jeremy. We got more coming with Jeremy in the coming weeks. So super excited about that. Wonder of the Seas cruise review with Mary. If I can pull her on, she'll actually be one of our next episodes. So bringing Mom back on. Little spoiler alert for those that are listening on the holidays here, but we'll bring Mary back on to talk about her experiences with Celebrity and just kind of the different cruises. She was in the Mediterranean last year, so we'll do some of that discussion with her. One of the funny ones was our top 10 cruise annoyances that we did. So that was one of our top episodes. And then what surprised us the most about Icon of the Seas, that was also a top one. So if you haven't listened to those, go check those out. Let us know. And if there's one that maybe you really like that's not on here, also let us know, because that'll be really, really interesting.
And the thing too with these episodes, Frank, is most of these were either like some of the last ones of last year or came out the start of this year. So when you look, and these are top 5 of all time. These weren't just top 5 of this year too. So obviously, I mean, being out for the whole year helps. But like I said, a lot of these are above some of the episodes, some of the earlier ones from last year as well. So like we said, continue to tune in each week. We really appreciate the support.
Going off of the support, if you are listening and you would like to book a cruise, you're like, hey, I really like these guys, I listen every week. There's 3 ways I think you could really support us. One is by booking a cruise. We are travel agents. We had actually a couple people reach out this week that listen to the podcast, people that are like, I've listened since the start. So thank you so much. It really, really means a lot to us. We can make sure that we get you the best prices, as well as just talking to you guys about cruising throughout the week, which we love. And there's no cost to use a travel agent. We're completely free. The cruise line already pays for us, and we'd love to help you with that. The other way is if you are going on a cruise, or if you did go on a cruise, tag us on Facebook. It's a huge thing for us to make sure that we're getting our Facebook up and going this year. You can do @Cruise Conversations for any cool cruising content. Maybe you could do like a year recap and you can tag us in there. That would really, really mean the world to us. And then the third way, we have a link you can actually give us money monthly as a subscription. Again, this is all just ways that you can give. It's a season of giving, and we appreciate you guys listening to Michael's point. And you don't have to do any of this, but that's just a way that if you want to give back, you can. So this is a fun little tradition. I feel like we can call it a tradition at this point, since we've done it twice. It was really fun last year to kind of talk about, what are the things that we would like to see starting in the cruise industry, stopping across the industry, and as well as just something that's really working well in the industry. And then also, I think we added like a podcast component to it as well. So we'll kind of loop either the podcast or like our personal cruising style in here as well. So just recapping, last year I said that I want the industry to start bringing some new itineraries to the Caribbean. I'm kind of bored of the Eastern, Western Caribbean itineraries. I think there were some changes. I saw some new ports that now Royal's going to, especially on the Southern Caribbean. They used to just do ABC, but now they're kind of adding in another port as well as Coco Cay. So some new itineraries. I think this is still one that's valid to me. And we kind of, even on last year's episode, we said that this will take a couple years because they do their itineraries, in a few years increments. So we're already booking like 2027. So hopefully, they'll continue to do this over the years. I definitely want to get more content on the ships. I think that we did this one, right? So getting more content, whether that's going live on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, we've done a really good job. We still have vlogs that need to go out on YouTube, but that one we're definitely working on. Michael, what about your starts for last year? What were some of the things that you mentioned on last year's episode that you wanted to see start in the industry or personally?
Yeah, so for podcast related, I said kind of expanding to talk about more cruise lines on the podcast. I think kind of this time last year was really kind of just Royal or Carnival, because like we've mentioned, that's kind of what we've sailed the most of. But this year, like we said, we've expanded to talk about Celebrity and MSC and Princess and Margaritaville. So I feel like we did a pretty good job there overall. I said personally, I wanted to try a new cruise line this year. At the time of recording this, I hadn't had anything booked yet on MSC yet. So tried that. That was super fun. And then the industry, I kind of wrote down more all-inclusive pricing options, right? That I feel like, the government released that thing this year where they have to roll in the taxes and port fees and throw that in. I think the people that helps the most is us that have sailed for years. Just know it. I feel like if you're a new cruiser,
you just expect that it's part of the price, right?
Well, we do, but I feel like new cruisers, the price looks a little higher, but they don't know before. Well, you would click into the lower price and then get the checkout, and they add all the taxes and fees. So
that's a good point.
A little more just upfront pricing, but I'm hopeful that they continue to kind of just add more, like I said, these all-inclusive packages on the ships.
So my stops. So for those that are listening that don't know what this is, stops are just things that you would like to see, going away in the industry, right? So the first one, or the only one I really put last year, was nickel and diming for onboard activities. I think I mentioned that like Crown's Edge on Icon of the Seas is like a 90-second experience, and they were charging like more than $89. This actually did come to fruition just for that one example, that they lowered that, thankfully, right before my sailing. And I think we actually made that joke on last year's when I was listening to it again. They lowered it down to I want to say like $35 or even less. So that was really, really nice for that experience. But overall in the industry, I would say this is one that they still need to work on. I think I talked about the popcorn costing extra. There's just things on board that they do nickel and dime. And I think that, just like the port fees, like you mentioned with all-inclusive pricing, I would love to see them include gratuities and just random little things that you feel like you have to add, to have a normal experience, like Wi-Fi, like basic Wi-Fi things should be included, like Virgin. So that one I feel like is like probably not come to fruition yet, but still one that I want to see happen, in the future. Yeah, Michael, what was your stop from last year?
So my stop for last year didn't happen. Was, we were talking about this with our upcoming cruise on Allure with the price of Hideaway, right? And how they'll increase the price of stuff, just end up putting it on sale, whether it's cruise fares or kind of like we said, a Hideaway, right? Because it got up to like $100, and then for the sale, they dropped it down to 50 days later. The cruise lines are still doing this. I think we knew this wasn't going anywhere, but had to have it down as a stop.
It's annoying. I hate like the price. It's like deception. It's like deceptive pricing. I don't love it. It's across the whole entire industry, so everyone does it. Maybe if like a leader like Royal Carnival, like they didn't do this and then everyone else
follow, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. In terms of keeps, so this is things that we want to see continuing. Would love to. I said that I want the cruise lines to keep bringing innovative dining experiences. Talked about the train, Royal Railway on Utopia. Talked about the Icon restaurant. I think we talked about Wonderland last year. On the podcast side, I think I said that I just want to keep bringing more fun guests onto the podcast, which I think we, both of those things have done decently well. This year we brought a lot of great guests on. We love bringing guests on, so excited to continue that into next year. And the innovative dining experience is one, I think, with some of the Princess we talked about doing, they brought on a really, really cool idea. So there's I think this is one that we'll continue to see, but a lot of the cruise lines are leaning into innovative dining experiences.
Yeah, for my keep, Frank, I had down kind of going off the innovative dining experiences like the theme zones on ships. And while the MSC World America hasn't launched yet, it's going to start sailing next year, they've been announcing a lot of those zones that are coming to the ship this year. So I think that is a win too. We've seen just another line now kind of going towards these themed immersive zones on the ships.
Yeah, and I think also too, like we saw Disney really lean into this with some of their new ships, and you've gone through in detail, I think a couple times now, just like all the different, neighborhoods and concepts that they're taking from the movies and really bringing that on board their ship.
So cool.
That's like, dude, that's gonna be awesome when I get to try Disney Cruise. I don't see it in the future for next year, but it's pretty cool. So that's a great one as well.
All right, well this year.
Yeah, so that was our like recap of last year of all the things that we wanted to see, different in the industry and personally as it related to cruising. So now let's kind of do a quick reflection for this year. I mean, I think we did pretty good last year. I think we have some things that they listen to us, the cruise gods listen to us. But yeah, let's kind of go through our start, stops, keeps personally and in the industry this year. I can kick it off, Michael, with mine first, then I'll throw it over to you. In terms of my starts, I would love to see more technology being, used to help I guess, offset those cruise annoyances that we have, like chair hogs or food delivery or my time dining, wait times, or just like crowds on board in general, messaging your room steward or knowing if your room steward is cleaning your room at a given, like there's a lot of examples. I think this will be an episode that we need to like do just to talk about what would the ideal cruise app or technology setup look like.
Yeah.
But there's certain things that certain lines do, but overall I would love to see this. It's a generation of AI, right? Like everything is so advanced. You can go to, McDonald's and you don't even talk to a human. Like there should be more of that brought into the cruising world to make your experience a little bit easier. And I think that we can kind of talk about this, like smart elevators, right? They're using like AI technology to, basically come up with a really good it's probably more of like an algorithm, but like basically say, here's the best path to get passengers, from each floor to where they want to go. I think that that's like one example, but they're only putting it on certain ships. So I'd love to see this, more like released broader in 2025. Michael, what about your starts?
Yeah, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the conversation we just had with Jason and Garrett the past couple weeks. One thing Jason had mentioned, it was a question he had for us, and it was like, how does he know going into the cruise what parties are going to be on the cruise and what type of clothing to bring for that? And it's like some activities. And, I think Royal kind of does the best with their app, right? Updating the app beforehand to kind of show some of this. Carnival, I don't think you can really see it beforehand. I know for Carnival more specifically, some of the cruise directors will kind of post for like their ship what parties they're doing for whatever months, or they don't do it like a week by week update, but kind of, hey, for this next couple months, this is kind of be the parties we do. So to bring
but
some
the average
stuff.
person isn't going to know what cruise director
Exactly, and like how to find all that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it kind of starts with the app, right? And like I said, I think that's where I think Royal kind of excels, is letting you get into a lot of the app before the cruise. And, we told Jason and Garrett, like, oh, you can go look at a past cruise compass or something, but that
you never
too,
know.
like,
Yeah.
people may not know. So I think this is something you'll never eventually, you won't see on the cruise line's website. I feel like when you go to a cruise line's website, it's to do a couple things. See the ships overall, kind of what's on the ship itself, and then book a cruise, really. I mean, I feel like all the cruise lines, that's really all there is to it. So, I don't know. We may not see this really happen, but I think it's a good ask for, like I said, especially newer cruisers who were wondering, because we had our friend Ben who was asking, we told him some of the parties we have on Allure coming up, and he was like confused at first. He's like, well, I'm not going to be bringing anything for any, like it's a white party. Bring a white shirt.
Yeah, like you have all
dress
these
for your
items.
best night. Bring a sports jacket. Yeah. So, once again, newer cruiser. He's done cruises, but it's been a while. So yeah, just more visibility with stuff like that. Podcast wise, like we've mentioned, getting more of the vlogs out. My MSC ones are still kind of just sitting here, and also some merch. This is something we've been working on for months, and we have hats, we have a couple T-shirts.
We have clients literally asking us for this stuff too, and we just haven't. I mean,
I don't know why we haven't just sent the link.
Well, yeah,
at this point,
we just need to crank out. Like we have a couple weeks off work, we can crank out some of this like random stuff that's been sitting, and get a link out. So if people want to buy like cool cruise hats and shirts and stuff, at least they can do it. But that's a good one.
Yeah. And now my personal, we know it's going to be happening. I think going over to Alaska and doing an Alaskan cruise, right? Getting out of the Caribbean. Obviously, I've done the Med, mostly done the Caribbean, but getting out, seeing Alaska, kind of, and just really starting to plan what we want to do. Because
we got to sit down and talk.
That trip's going to be coming, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so now let's pivot over to stops. One of the things that I feel like is a big complaint and kind of an issue is like we always have great deals on the 2 guest rooms, especially Royal with the group rates, but solo rooms get really tricky. And like I'm telling people, like this is a conversation I had yesterday, is like you can just bring a friend for free. Like just book it for 2 people, put a fake name in there, and let's just figure it out. We have up until 48 hours until you sail. It's the same price if you just book by yourself. So why not book for 2? Yes, you may have like an increased deposit, but you book for 2. And if you find a friend between now and your cruise, we can add them. But it almost is just like, there's a lot of people out there that do want to just go solo because that's like, they don't want to be stuck in a small room with someone. And it's like, I would love to see them change this or maybe make it not as impactful to where they have to, book for 2 guests or create new ways to allow solo guests to travel on a budget.
Yeah, and it's been nice to see the lines. I know we've talked about Norwegian in the past, kind of their solo rooms. I know when I've been on Virgin's website, they have some solo staterooms. So it's cool to see the lines just also extending that way too. Now you're normally paying a little bit more than just the average person's fare, but you're not paying double at the end of the day. It's still cheaper to book some of the solo rooms as well. So I'd like to see those come to Carnival, Royal, some of the bigger lines as well, because, I think they're the ones we sail the most. And
Yeah.
But for my stop, Frank, I have making changes and cutbacks just to save the cruise lines a little bit of money, but not actually thinking about kind of what the guests want.
That's a good one.
We were talking about when we were at Carowinds yesterday, Winterfest, right? It's this big event they do each year at Christmas time. And I saw somebody's post it was a post they made a couple days ago talking about the event in 2017, 2018. Is all the extra stuff they had that they've gotten rid of since. And I think the average person kind of just forgets about it. But someone who's gone a lot, and kind of like us with cruising too, we know what there used to be. And now you've seen some of it get taken away. I know one thing I had seen recently with some changes to Carnival's pizza, for example. I don't think it had been fully 24 hours for a couple years now, maybe. But it was still a bulk of the time till 2, 3, 4 a.m. I don't know the exact end time. But now the main pizza place, they're cutting off earlier, right? I think it's midnight or something. And then it gets moved up to the buffet, different style pizza. Now they've kind of brought back some of the late night buffet options. But I think some of the people who want the other pizza are like, well, why don't you just put more people there to serve? I don't know. I think it's just some small changes here and there that, like we said, we've seen stuff just taken away that I just would like to see the cruise lines think about the guests a little more.
Yeah, that's fair.
Another stop I have, Frank, for the industry is to stop charging for the second dish in the dining room.
Oh,
you know where this is happening?
Where is this happening?
MSC.
Dude, they need to stop doing that. That's terrible.
And because I'm used to I think Carnival charges at $3 now. I think Royal you can still, they don't charge at all maybe.
Never heard that.
But MSC, all the food I had in the dining room.
I will tell you, Royal did something different on our Bachelor. Rather than bringing out all those plates, they make you do one at a time, usually.
Okay.
So that's one thing. If you order 3, they're fine with you ordering 3, but they want you to bring out, you can say we're going to share one, but then they won't bring you out 3 at one time.
Gotcha.
Sorry, but go ahead.
Well, I think we know talking about things that have kind of cut back, the portion sizes have cut back. They're smaller in the dining room. I was shocked when I tried to order 2 dishes and the guy was like, oh no, it's going to be, I think it was $5, which at the end of the day isn't a lot, but
that's part of cruising.
I know. Out of what I've experienced on other lines, I was like, no, it's okay. Just bring me my 1 dish. So, yeah, another stop I have there. All right, Frank, what do you have down for your keep?
Yeah, so for keep, I really would like them to keep enhancing the loyalty programs. We have seen some of that shift for Celebrity and Royal this year and some of the other lines. I think that they're starting to really think about, it's a competitive market. How do we get Michael and Frank to keep booking with us, right? And I think that Royal does it really. They're probably one of the best with their loyalty programs, and they've got me just fully bought in. But I think that that's also a challenge. I'll admit that. But I think that what they need to do is make it more seamless, especially when going between Princess and Carnival as well as Royal and Celebrity, and just make those benefits really matter to the customer. I think that they've done some of that with the free drinks, but there's other loyalty programs out there that we've gone through and talked about it. It's honestly kind of useless. It doesn't really give you much. Even if you do 700 nights with a cruise line, you should literally be walking on and feel like royalty. Everything should feel great. You should have free drinks. You should have free dining. You should meet the officers. All of that should be, if you're spending 700 nights, you need to be treated like gold. And we're not seeing a lot of that. So I think they just need to continue to revamp their loyalty. The airlines do a decent job at it. The hotels have a good loyalty program. I think these cruise lines need to keep working on that. What about you, Michael? What's your keep?
Yeah, so for my keep in the industry, it's to continue to expand the cruise line private islands and destinations. I feel like this has been a lot of the talk this year. We've talked about it a lot between Perfect Day Mexico, Celebration Key, talking about the beach club at Paradise Island and the one coming to Cozumel. And even Disney, they opened their private island this year. So, I think this is, these aren't going away at the end of the day. No time soon. And, I think a lot of people, want to see, you mentioned how one of your things last year was seeing new itineraries in the Caribbean. And I think this is how you're going to see them expand the most, because, it's much easier for a cruise line to be like, hey, I'm going to go build this island or this destination here versus getting a whole government behind a brand new port area for multiple cruise lines to come in at the end of the day. So
that's a really good point, because even when more ships are going to these private islands, that opens up spots that are, not as big ports, right? Like, Cozumel's a big port, but that opens up slots for more ships to do different routes and things like that. So that's a really, really good point that you made.
Yeah, shout out to all the people for these cruise companies that somehow figure out all the itineraries and that. Obviously, like you said, we're booking cruises into 2027 right now, so they're already talking 2028, 2029 to get that all solidified. It's crazy. It must be probably one of the biggest puzzles out there. And then as far as podcast related, like I said, kind of like this past year, just continue to expand the content we're bringing to the podcast outside of just this format of media, right? We've released some of the vlogs, and I know we've also talked about just releasing other types of videos.
Yeah.
You've talked about maybe doing some sort of blog.
I know. I would like to write stuff down. I feel like it's kind of a quicker way to read something on Facebook than sitting down and watching something.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be cool. We've got big plans. We got website stuff coming next year. So thanks for everyone's support. And all of that is going to continue to bring more content quicker to your phone, your TV, whatever you use to consume cruise information. So I have some personal stuff that I feel like I need to get out there. So starts, I need to get it out. This is my, I don't go to the studio and make a song. This is me getting it out. So number one, I need to start eating in the dining room again. I haven't eaten in the dining room, dude. I think I said this before. I don't remember. It's got to be over a year, and I've been on a lot of cruises.
You're Bachelor. We ate in there most nights on The Bachelor.
Okay, so that was, you're right.
Outlier for the year, but
outlier. That was an outlier. So I just need to get back into the dining room again and just give more reviews on what the food and experience is like. I actually miss it, mostly because I love Indian food, and I love that Royal has it in their dining room, and I love that a lot of cruise lines are starting to add Indian food into the buffets and dining room. So personally, I need to eat in the dining room again. I've just been so hooked on specialty dining. So that's one of my goals for next year. For stopping, I think I've been going on a lot of the same itineraries to the Bahamas. So I would love to venture out. Shout out to our group cruise, which we're currently planning for next October 29th to 4-night on Symphony of the Seas. It's actually going to Dominican Republic. So that's a good example of me not choosing the 4-night that goes to the Bahamas, but doing one that goes to a new port. So I'm really, really excited about that. And then just I think you kind of mentioned this, is that I want to keep trying new lines. I think I'm going to try to make my next cruise after our January cruise to be Celebrity. I think that's my goal next year. And also just to continue bringing on different guests with different backgrounds than Michael and I, as well as just with different experiences, different cruise lines. Maybe we'll talk about river cruises next. We'll just bring on people that are really cruise loving people and kind of bring different experiences to this podcast. So,
and I think we did a good job with that this year. We had Leslie come on, talk about the World Cruise. We had the High Flying Kite family, Ian and Claire, come on, talk about cruising, P&O, but also cruising with kids.
Yeah.
So just different backgrounds that we can't connect to because we don't have kids and we haven't sailed on a world cruise. So
exactly, just those two. But no, that's a really good point. I think that's a goal for next year, and I think that that's kind of our summary, right? So start, stop, keep. Take this framework into your personal life. Think about your businesses. Think about your job. Think about your relationships. What are some things that you want to start, stop, keep next year? We probably need to talk about it as well, just personally. And use this framework to help you kind of plan for next year. I think it's a good way. Everyone starts new goals and new objectives, and this is a simple framework to kind of puts together some goals for next year without getting too crazy. I don't want to lose 500 pounds and, there's just, when you start doing all these New Year's resolutions, it gets messy. So this is a really easy way to do it. But Michael, we have some Q&A. So let's hop into the Q&A section.
All right, Frank. Yeah, like you said, moving into some Q&A. We haven't done Q&A in months.
Listen, you guys, you're listening to this podcast. We see you.
Yeah.
Write us a question just so we can call you out and say, Josie from Charlotte or...
Well, and we do have people that email us and ask us questions. We can probably start pulling some of those in. Even though we're answering them, we can probably throw them on here too.
Most of them are booking questions, I will say.
That's true. But maybe a start to think about for next year. So we actually texted our friend group who were coming on Allure with us because we texted.
We said, what questions do you have? We need to be better about this in the new year.
Yeah. So our friend Blake, who actually came on the podcast, I think last year to talk about his time in Ireland. Yeah, it was really the one podcast we did that wasn't really a cruise related, but still travel, so it's cool. He said, for a first-time cruiser, would you suggest to stay within a more budget-friendly on a smaller ship or spend more for a bigger ship like Icon?
I think it totally depends. I think it totally depends on who you're traveling with. That's the cop-out answer. But I would say if you're going to give it one shot, first-time cruiser, they're going to go, and if they don't like cruising, they're going to never cruise again. I would say don't try to go budget-friendly. Try to spend a little more. Get a balcony room. Don't do an inside. Like, you don't have to spend like Icon pricing. I would say go with like a newer ship. It doesn't have to be brand new. You can go with one that's kind of refurbished or just one that's like a little bit larger. So like on Carnival, we would probably do like, Celebration, Mardi Gras, Jubilee. We would do like one that's kind of newer to the fleet. Same thing with Royal. We'd probably do Oasis class or one of the Freedom class. You don't have to do like, we're not going to put you on an old one, but we'd say put you on one that's been upgraded a little bit, right? Like a Freedom or an Independence, that one that we trust. But you don't have to spend like crazy, crazy money on, but just so that we know you're going to get a good experience rather than like, oh, we're going to put you on like a Radiance class but like those are still great. And if someone's like, I don't want crowds, or they come and say things that are like suggesting that the Oasis class or big Mardi Gras or Celebration is going to be too much for them, maybe we'll suggest a different cruise line or whatever. But typically, I would say on your first cruise, I wouldn't go like more budget friendly.
Yeah, and just thinking too, if it's your first time, you're probably more invested in the cruise experience as a whole versus the places you're going. So like you said, a Radiance class smaller ship may get you to some more exotic ports, for example. But if it's your first time, you're probably caring more about the entertainment on the ship, the food you're eating, all of that. And like you said, the cop-out answer at the start when Blake texted us this, that's exactly where my mind went to. Is like, it's going to depend if you have kids. If you don't have kids, if you have kids, you're going to want to go on a ship that has more things and activities for them to do at the end of the day, which you're probably not going to get on an older ship. So, yeah, I think you kind of hit it spot on, kind of hit that middle ground, get on a newer ship, and really, like you said, especially if you're just trying it once and you're just going to make or break your cruising experience, I'd rather spend a little more and
get the real experience.
Yeah, exactly. Our next question comes from Ben.
Dude, he's a nerd.
He's a CRNA. So this question kind of goes along with that. He was asking, what medical facilities do cruise ships have on them, and are they able to perform emergency surgery if necessary?
This is crazy because last year I read an article that said that there was a childbirth on board.
Wow.
And if you're like planning, your family planning right now, like me and my wife are having this conversation because she wants kids. And I'm like, okay, there are certain rules about you cannot travel on a cruise if I think it's 6 months pregnant.
Okay.
So someone was under 6 months pregnant and they had their baby.
Wow.
And it was a little
That's
premature,
wild.
but they actually like were able to stabilize it and get it to an actual hospital, and it worked out good. But to answer the question, Ben, they do have doctors on board. They've got some medical facilities. In terms of surgery, I've never heard anyone performing like a actual surgery on board. I know that they've got doctors, they've got medical equipment. I think if it was an emergency, like a life or death, like they have what they need to stabilize you on board. I'm not a doctor, but they would actually try to execute the surgery by getting you to a hospital through typically a helicopter. I've seen like them bringing on helicopters and bringing off guests. I've seen them like detouring the ships in order to get someone, the care that they need. So their first goal is to not like perform surgery. Their first goal is to get you to a point that is like stabilized. And I think that that's the kind of equipment that they have. They also have like the basic stuff. If you get seasick, if you hurt your leg, like they can put it like things like that. Like they can deal with you messing up a body part or whatever, but they're not going to sit here and like I don't think they're going to like opt to do a surgery unless it's like absolutely required. I have never really heard of them doing surgeries personally, but Michael, I don't know if you have any. Yeah.
No.
Usually they just try to get you off the ship as quickly as possible if it is an emergency. And yeah, it's pretty crazy because you'll hear like they'll announce that there's been an emergency, and then maybe minutes later, you can hear like a helicopter coming and actually getting the guests off the ship. So, Michael, it's a really good question from Ben. I mean, it's a really good question.
It's true.
He may have to do like the behind the scenes tour, actually go down there on a lure in a couple weeks and like check out what they have. But awesome. That's fun. We really enjoyed having these questions. So again, if you are able to submit us a question, you can do it on Instagram at Cruise Conversations. You can also send us an email at cruiseconversations@gmail.com.
Well, hey, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. It's actually going to wrap up our year, Frank. Our first full year as a podcast. Congrats.
Dude, it's awesome.
Like we said, by the time this comes out, it'll be January 1st anyway, so we're ready kind of going into the new year strong with an episode. Like we said, we plan on just continuing to bring episodes each week. We're excited for 2025.
I'm excited to get on more cruises.
I know, right? Like I said, before we sat down and clicked record on this, I told you it doesn't feel real yet that we're going to be cruising next month at the end of the day.
I know. I need it. I really need. I feel like I'm moving. I'm actually moving into a new house. So personally, I'm excited about getting on another cruise.
Yeah, and obviously we'll have some episodes kind of before that, kind of previewing that, and then obviously we may record some on the ship, may make some vlogs here and there. So super excited for that. Like you kind of teased, your mom's gonna be back on the podcast soon. So that's gonna be
Cruising Bear coming back, Mom coming back. We got a lot of good guests. So
yeah, so stay tuned for those. And as always, if you're interested in booking a cruise with us, you can reach out to us. You can shoot us a text or give us a phone call at 704-313-8556 or fill out the jot form in our bio. We'd love to pull you a quote there. And like you mentioned, if you have any questions for question and answer, you can email those to us at cruiseconversations@gmail.com or DM us on Facebook or Instagram or even leave a comment on YouTube. We've pulled some from there before. But yeah, we hope you all have a great Christmas or having a great New Year's, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday.